Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. It happened at a party. Her boss's birthday. I didn't want to go, but she insisted. Said it would mean a lot to her. I wore the shirt she liked, brought the right wine, smiled at the right people. Played my role. Then I saw it. A moment. One of those quiet, piercing moments that changes everything. She was standing across the room, laughing. Not the polite laugh she gave me at home. This one was real. Loose. Bright. She touched his arm. The tall guy from her office. Michael. The one she barely spoke to. She leaned in and said something, and he laughed too. Not a normal laugh. It was slower. He looked at her like she was his. Like he'd already had her. I started walking over. Not fast. Not angry. Just focused. And that's when I heard it. You're just convenient. Not exciting. Her voice. Her words. Floating through the air like smoke. I froze. She didn't know I was behind her. Didn't see me. She was talking to her friend, Emma, I think. The one who always looked at me like I was beneath her. I mean, he's good. Stable. Dependable. But God, sometimes I feel like I'm married to a routine. Not a man. Emma giggled. That's rough. And then she said it again. Quieter. Like she needed to hear it herself. Just convenient. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I just turned around, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were steady. My mind wasn't. She had no idea I heard. But in that moment, something inside me flipped. Not snapped. Not rage. Something colder. Cleaner. Like a blade being unsheathed. She danced through the rest of the evening. Toasts, small talk, that artificial warmth she saved for social situations. I watched her move. Study her laugh. Her smile. It hit me. I didn't recognize her anymore. And maybe worse, she didn't recognize me. When we got home, she slipped off her heels, complained about her feet, and scrolled through Instagram while brushing her teeth. I sat on the edge of the bed. Silent. Focused. Planning. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't toss or turn. I observed. I remembered all the little things. How she started locking her phone. The way she flinched when I touched her back in the kitchen. How she suddenly needed space every weekend. Yoga retreats. Girls' nights. Last-minute dinners with coworkers. Always coming home just a little too late. I thought it was just stress. Burnout. A phase. No. It was a rehearsal. She was preparing to live without me. I had just been too blind to see it. But now I was awake. She thought I'd lash out. Get angry. Argue. Beg. No. That's not the man she's married to anymore. Because starting that night, she stopped being my wife. And I started becoming someone else. 3 days after the party, her boss called me by accident. It was short. A pocket dial, maybe. But I picked up and heard her name. His voice. Something about the getaway, and she looked amazing in that red dress. My gut tightened. Red dress. She wore it to that client dinner last month, the one she swore was all business. I didn't say a word. Just listened until the line went dead. I didn't confront her. That would have made her feel important. Instead, I walked into the next room, sat down, and opened a blank document on my laptop. Not for a letter. Not for a message. For a plan. The first step? Distance. Not physical. Emotional. Strategic. I stopped checking in. Stopped offering coffee. Stopped asking how her day went. She noticed. She tried to test the waters, soft smiles in the morning, brushing her hand against mine while pretending to reach for the salt. I responded with silence. A nod. A hollow thanks. Then came the second trigger. A friend of mine, Ben, works in IT. He owed me a favor. I asked him to check metadata on a few shared files, cloud folders, shared calendars. Nothing invasive. Just timestamps. Her last client file was uploaded at 3:43 a.m. 2 weeks ago, on a Sunday, from a hotel Wi-Fi network. She told me she was at a friend's house, venting about stress. I didn't ask questions. I didn't need answers. I just started preparing the exit. People think the end comes with yelling. Accusations. Slam doors. No, it starts in the quiet. In how you stop folding her laundry. In how you leave one fork in the drawer when setting the table. In how your phone suddenly never leaves your side. She didn't notice right away. She was too wrapped up in her newfound freedom. That's when her assistant slipped. I was dropping off her car keys at her office when she said, "You're so supportive." Most husbands would lose it if their wife traveled that much with her creative director. Creative director. Michael. I smiled. Thanked her. Walked out. Never said a word. That night, I watched my wife rehearse innocence. Long day, she said. I'm just exhausted. I nodded. She sat closer than usual. Touched my arm. No apology. Just proximity. I didn't move. She looked at me, waiting. I said nothing. And in that silence, I watched the first crack form behind her eyes. I wasn't reacting the way she expected. I wasn't defending my territory, begging for attention, accusing her of betrayal. That would have given her power. Instead, I let her wonder. Let her spiral in her own performance. Let her keep talking while I already knew the next step. Because this wasn't a fight. This was a strategy. And she didn't even know she'd already lost the first round. People lie with words. But numbers? They don't care how charming you are. So I followed the trail she didn't think to hide. The shared calendar told me more than she ever would. She had marked off 3 evenings for client debriefs. Each one ended just after midnight. The same pattern. Same location. Downtown hotel. But not in her name. I cross-referenced the address with rideshare receipts she forgot to delete. Pick up at our house. Drop off at a nearby bar. And then silence for 6 hours. When she came home from those nights, she was all soft kisses and sleepy smiles. She thought that performance was enough. I let her think that. I logged into our shared bank account and started digging deeper. She had always used one credit card for everything. I checked recent charges, spa sessions she didn't tell me about, dinners for 2 at restaurants she used to say were too fancy for date night. There were 2 tickets purchased under her name for a jazz show I'd never heard about. She had gone silent that night, claimed to be at a networking event. The receipt said otherwise. She had paid for both. He wasn't just an escape. He was an investment. But I didn't print screenshots. Didn't confront her in a fit of rage. That would have been too easy. I copied the data, compiled it, stored it in a secure folder with a password only I knew. Every message, every receipt, every log. She was building a future she thought I couldn't see. I was building an exit she couldn't stop. I started changing small things. Canceled a few subscriptions we shared. Moved some money from the joint account into one with only my name. She didn't notice. She was too busy playing pretend. Then came the night I watched her rehearse love again. Candlelight dinner at home. She made my favorite pasta. Wore the earrings I'd given her last Christmas. But I had already seen her Uber receipt from 2 hours earlier. She'd made a detour. A hotel bar. 43 minutes. Enough for a drink. Or something else. She lit the candles like nothing happened. That night, when she reached for my hand, I didn't pull away. But I didn't squeeze back either. I let her sit in that silence. I let her feel the distance she'd created. Not with drama. With precision. She went asleep with a full stomach and a half-empty heart. I stayed awake. Not out of pain. Out of purpose. Because now I had the evidence. Now I had the weapon. And I wasn't going to use it to destroy her. I was going to use it to disappear. Completely. The morning I disappeared, she didn't even notice. She was standing in the mirror, applying mascara, humming the tune of a song she always played when she was in a good mood. Maybe she'd had another late-night message from him. Maybe she felt invincible. I watched her from the doorway, invisible already. She didn't turn around. Perfect. At 7:42 a.m., she left for work. Same coat. Same bag. Same routine. At 8:05 a.m., I switched off my phone. Pulled the SIM. Crushed it. Dropped it down the disposal and ran the water until the grinding drowned everything out. At 8:11 a.m., I disabled all her access to our bank accounts. Not closed, just shifted. She wouldn't notice until it mattered. At 8:25 a.m., I locked the bedroom closet and took the only key. The contents weren't valuable, just symbolic. By 9 a.m., I was gone. No note. No text. No warning. I checked into a quiet Airbnb 2 towns over. Minimal footprint. Paid in cash. I didn't vanish to punish her. I vanished to reclaim myself. That afternoon, she texted once. Dinner plans tonight. I didn't respond. Later that night, another message. Running late. Want me to pick up sushi? Still silence. I watched the screen go dark. Just like I had. By the 3rd missed call, her rhythm broke. The next morning, she came home after work expecting me to be on the couch. Instead, she found absence. The keys I always left on the tray, gone. The charger by the nightstand, gone. My cologne, my slippers, my favorite hoodie, gone. She stood in the living room for over 20 minutes. I watched her through the front camera feed. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just looked around, like she was trying to find a misplaced object. Something she knew should be there. She checked the closet. Tried to open it. Locked. Opened drawers. Light. Empty. She called again. 4 times in a row. Then came the text. Where are you? I didn't reply. She tried a different angle. Are you okay? Please, talk to me. And finally, can we fix this? The woman who couldn't feel anything when I touched her now couldn't feel anything but my absence. I turned off the camera feed. She didn't need an audience. She needed a mirror. And she was finally standing in front of one. This wasn't revenge. It was revelation. She thought she had time. That I was stationary. Predictable. Convenient. But I was already miles ahead. Gone from her world, but fully present in mine. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. Because sometimes the loudest sound you can make is silence. The moment I vanished, I knew it wouldn't take long before he panicked too. Michael. Her escape plan. Her upgrade. Her fantasy. He thought he was winning. Thought she was drifting toward him out of passion, desire, some deep cosmic connection. He never realized he was a pawn. A temporary thrill. A man who lived in borrowed time. I didn't need to expose him. I needed to destabilize him. So I studied. I found his weak spot on a public records site. A minor lawsuit from 2 years ago. Settled quietly. Financial misconduct. Digging deeper, I uncovered unpaid invoices from vendors tied to his startup. Small-time infractions, but stacked together, they painted a different picture. Then I called in a favor. My old college roommate, Jason, worked in compliance at a firm that happened to do business with Michael's company. I didn't tell Jason everything. Just asked him to take a look at a few filings I forwarded anonymously. Discrepancies. Inconsistencies. Just enough to warrant a second glance. A week later, I heard whispers. Michael's team launched an internal audit. Not public yet, but close. I watched it unfold from a distance. He pulled back. Less communication. Fewer late-night texts. The silence on her end grew louder. She messaged me again. This time longer. Confused. Hesitant. Did I do something? I feel like I don't know where you are anymore. Please talk to me. She hadn't said his name in weeks. Because now, even he was slipping from her grip. The structure she was building, me in the background, him at the center, was collapsing. Not because I struck it down. Because I removed myself from its foundation. Without me, she had no alibi. Without me, he had no leverage. I didn't burn them. I let them overheat in their own secrecy. And I just kept moving. By this time, I had transferred all joint assets into a trust with my name only. Legal. Quiet. Clean. Our house. Already in the market under a shell name. She hadn't noticed the for sale sign in the yard of a property held by a holding company. Because it was technically no longer ours. Every move she thought was hers to make. I'd already made months ago. And while she scrambled to understand what was happening, I went on long walks. Slept deeply. Ate alone in quiet cafes without checking my phone. I didn't need to explain myself. That's what made it powerful. People assume silence means confusion, weakness. But real silence? The kind that's chosen? It's strategy. And strategy always wins. Her world was built on optics. Sunday brunches with her curated friend group. Smiling selfies with hollow captions. Charity posts with perfectly placed hashtags. She was a master of appearances, of seeming grounded, loyal, loving. Until the performance cracked. It started subtly. A friend of hers, Lauren, shared a post about betrayal, trust, and masks people wear. No tags. No names. But everyone knew who it was about. Then her sister, Rachel, called me. Said she hadn't heard from her in weeks. Asked if everything was okay. I told her the truth. No venom. No drama. She's figuring out who she wants to be, I said. And I'm giving her the space to do that. Rachel was silent. Then she thanked me. Said she respected the way I was handling it. I didn't need her to pick sides. But she did anyway. 3 days later, Rachel unfollowed her own sister. Deleted all their shared photos from social media. It rippled from there. Mutual friends stopped commenting under her posts. The ones who used to heart every picture now scrolled past in silence. She was still posting, still pretending everything was normal, but the engagement dropped. The comments got colder. Sharper. You good? This new version of you. Not sure I recognize it. Then came the voicemail from her mother. I didn't have to hear the whole thing to understand. The tone said enough. Disappointed, clipped, cautious. She said she just needed time, her mother said. But now I'm wondering, time for what? The woman who once held court in every room now found herself walking into whispers. People didn't accuse her. They just started avoiding her. And when a woman like her loses control of her image, it's not the scandal that breaks her. It's the silence. She texted me late one night. "You told them, didn't you?" I didn't reply, because I didn't have to tell anyone. I simply stopped protecting her narrative. And without me guarding the illusion, the truth leaked on its own. She had gambled everything on a future built in secret. Now, every crack was showing, and no one was rushing to patch them. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't vengeful. But I wasn't going to be her shield either. Her performance had ended, and the audience was already leaving. Isolation doesn't come all at once. It seeps in, quietly, steadily, like water beneath a locked door. She tried to fight it at first, posted more often, brighter filters, captions about growth, healing, self-discovery. But you can only lie to your reflection for so long before it stops playing along. The silence from me was one thing. She could pretend I needed space. But when the group chats dried up, when invites stopped coming, when her name went untagged from events, reality caught up. I had already moved out of our shared place. The lease was in my name. She had nowhere else to go but back to her sister's for a few nights. She stayed longer than expected. Rachel didn't ask questions. She didn't have to. Her eyes did the talking. I watched from the outside. Not literally. Metaphorically. Through the cracks of mutual friends, the silence of her online trail, the growing pause in her digital presence. Then came the call from her mentor, Elena, a woman who once praised her for being composed, decisive, magnetic. Elena left a voicemail that said it all. "I hope you're okay, but it feels like you're spinning. Don't lose yourself trying to chase something that was never meant to last." That was the beginning of the end, because even the people she didn't betray stopped trusting her. Not out of anger, out of caution. She reached out again. This time, the message was different. "I miss you. I miss us. I don't know who I am without you." I didn't answer, not because I was punishing her, but because she wasn't messaging me. She was messaging a version of me she thought still existed. The dependable fallback. The man she could always circle back to. He was gone. In his place was someone she never thought I could become. Detached. Calm. Focused. I had started running again. Morning jogs at 6 a.m. Miles without music. Just breath and pace. I reconnected with people I'd neglected. Old friends. Even my brother, who once warned me about her. "You look lighter," he said when we met for coffee. I was. Because nothing weighs more than pretending not to see the truth. And nothing frees you like walking straight through it. Meanwhile, she was slipping. Quietly. Not dramatically. No outbursts. Just fading. The woman who used to command attention in every room now looked through windows like she was searching for someone who'd never return. Because she was. And I had already left that version of myself behind. She waited until the end to confront me. Not at the height of her confidence. Not during the affair, or the detachment, or even the disappearance. No, she waited until the silence swallowed everything, and her reflection no longer recognized her. It was a Tuesday. She found where I was staying. Not the Airbnb, I left that weeks ago. She tracked me through a mutual friend who didn't know better. Said she just wanted closure. She looked smaller when she arrived. Not physically, just deflated. The woman who once filled every room now seemed to shrink beneath the weight of her own choices. I didn't invite her in. I stepped outside. She stood there in the driveway, arms crossed, pretending not to shiver. "I just want to talk." I nodded, but I said nothing. She hesitated, looked at me like she was trying to locate the man she thought she left behind. "I made a mistake," she started. "I thought I needed more. I thought I needed clarity." Still silence. I didn't think it would cost me everything. I watched her calm. Still, the wind moved more than I did. She took a step closer. "I don't expect things to go back. I need to know if you ever felt like we were real. Like I mattered." I didn't speak. Because the truth wasn't about her anymore. It was about the man I became after her. When she realized I wasn't going to fill the silence, she started filling it herself. I thought he was something I needed. Excitement. Passion. But he wasn't. He was empty. It was all empty. She paused, waiting for a reaction. I blinked slowly. That's when her eyes finally shifted. From hope to panic. "I know I hurt you, but I still believe we could fix this." And then, for the first time in months, I spoke. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Just enough for the air between us to change. "There's nothing left to fix." She froze. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't angry, but it was final. I stepped past her, walked to my car, and opened the door. She stood there, arms limp, breathing shallow. "This isn't you," she whispered. But she was wrong. This was exactly me. Not the man she once used for stability. Not the fallback. Not the safety net. This was the version of me that watched her choose someone else and decided, without fanfare or fire, to leave the building, without ever slamming the door. I sat in my car, engine humming. She stood in the driveway, staring like the silence might break if she just stood long enough. But it didn't, because this wasn't a break. It was an ending, and I had already lived through the hardest part, choosing not to be chosen anymore. Collapse doesn't look like one dramatic moment. It's slower, meaner, a quiet unraveling that no one claps for. A month passed after that final conversation. She didn't try again, not because she didn't want to, because she finally understood. There was no version of me coming back through that door. I had restructured everything. The house sold. The joint accounts closed. Every tie between us dissolved with the efficiency of a man who'd planned his exit long before she noticed the silence. I'd heard whispers. From mutuals. From neighbors. She was slipping. Lost her position at work. Not fired, but pushed out. A realignment that just happened to occur after her image took a hit. Michael? Gone. Completely disappeared after the audit. His startup? Folded. Quietly swept under a rug. She was left with nothing but echoes. No social safety net. No fallback. No carefully curated life to post about. She moved into a one-bedroom on the outskirts of town. I only knew because someone forwarded me a listing that matched her name. The photos showed a dim apartment with beige walls and borrowed furniture. Not cold. Just empty. That's the word that kept circling her now. Empty. She tried to reinvent herself. New hairstyle. New routines. Joined yoga again. Attended a few networking brunches. But the problem wasn't how she looked. It was the silence that followed her into every room. The people who used to admire her now only offered polite nods. The ones who stayed behind did so for their own reasons. Curiosity. Guilt. Pity. She could feel it. And then, finally, came the message I expected. No emotion. No plea. Just one line. I get it now. I didn't answer. Not out of cruelty. Out of completion. There was nothing left to say. She had burned the bridge, then circled back to find it turned to dust. And still, she didn't scream. She didn't beg. She just faded. Because by the time she realized the gravity of what she lost, the man she lost had already become someone else. Someone she could never touch again. I didn't wish her pain. I didn't celebrate her fall. I just watched the last piece of the illusion dissolve. And in that quiet, something inside me clicked shut. Not a door. A vault. The one that used to hold every excuse I made for her. Every compromise. Every half-truth I let slide. Locked. For good. Because watching her unravel wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition. I saw who she truly was. And more importantly, she finally saw who I'd become. The last time I saw her, it wasn't planned. A cafe on the far side of town. Midweek. Quiet. I was picking up coffee, waiting near the door. She walked in wearing the same jacket she wore the night she whispered I was just convenient. But now, the shoulders slouched. The color faded. She didn't see me at first. Then she froze. Not in fear. Not in guilt. In recognition. The way someone stares at a version of their past that grew sharper without them. I didn't speak. I didn't look away. I simply met her eyes with calm clarity. Not anger. Not pride. Just presence. She stepped forward slightly, as if to say something. But no words came. Just a pause. A breath. And then she nodded. Small. Subtle. Not a greeting. A surrender. She turned, walked out, and didn't look back. That's when I knew it was over. Not because I stopped caring, but because I no longer needed her to understand what she'd done. I had built a new life, one she couldn't touch. My mornings started without tension. My nights ended without guessing. I moved differently. Spoke less. Listened more. I was no longer trying to fix someone else's chaos. I was designing my own calm. The version of me that once bent over backwards to maintain peace no longer existed. Now, I chose who entered my world. And she wasn't on the list. That night, I sat by the window of my new apartment. Quiet city traffic humming in the background. I thought of the journey, not with regret, but with clarity. She had taught me the cost of convenience. I had paid it in full. And in return, I gained something rare. Detachment without bitterness. Peace without permission. The phone lit up once more. One last message. I hope you're okay. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because the version of me she once knew was no longer accepting messages. Not from her. Not from the past. Just before midnight, I turned off my phone, stared at the ceiling for a long time, and whispered to no one. I didn't disappear. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. Then I exhaled. Slow. Final. And everything that had once held me back stayed behind. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.